to the special conversation on the side of the 4th Digital Excellence Awards. Digital engineering is reshaping everything, from financial systems to global software platforms to life sciences. The question is no longer just about technology adoption. It's increasingly about leadership. Today, I'm pleased to welcome to this conversation with me 3 distinguished leaders. Dr. Mary Gunaratnam, who's the SVP of IT at Northern Credit Union and Woman Engineer of the Year. Congratulations. Inderpreet Kambo, who's CEO of Improso. And Saurabh Atre, who's the Chief Segment Officer of Software and Platforms for L&T Technology Services. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you.
In terms of the engineering that we're talking about here, how do we continue to design, deploy, and deliver systems that are resilient, inclusive, and capable of creating competitive advantage in particular? Right? So, Dr. Mary, excuse me, may I start with you? As you're shaping your digital systems across, and for you it's financial systems, correct? What's your perspective on engineering leadership as it's progressed over the last couple of years?
I would say definitely engineering has evolved. I mean, when we first started out, increasingly, so I've been in the industry for about 20 years, both in healthcare and finance. And over the years, you know, as you can imagine, I've been involved in leading massive digital transformations, and I've been fortunate enough to lead organizations through change. And I've watched that evolution from how we started off originally from keeping the lights on, cost center approach, to what engineering truly is right now. And I'd say in current state, it's more so becoming a strategic enabler where we are you know, driving a competitive advantage, or we're that engine for innovation, and more increasingly a foundation for trust as well. I'd say in finance especially, we are very much focused on ensuring that the systems that we build protect our members, and that they safeguard our communities, and that they enable businesses. So we take that responsibility to heart. And I would say that what this ultimately translates to in terms of an evolution, when we design for systems, it's no longer just, you know, innovation. It has to be balanced with governance, and the technology impact has to be balanced with the human impact.
Great, thank you. Inderpreet, do you have a perspective on how you've seen engineering leadership kind of morph over the last few years?
Sure. What we are seeing, and I work exclusively, and our team work exclusively in life sciences, so pharmaceuticals, med devices, animal health. We are seeing a very explicit change. Over the past 5 years, almost to a decade, there has been significant investment in what we call data digital technology core. So these large organizations have invested not tens, but hundreds of millions of dollars to create this digital stack. So the data exists, the technology exists. Now it is about how do we leverage this infrastructure that has been built over time to now curate insights. It is from data technology to now insights. Fast forward even 12 months, 18 months, we are expected to generate these insights within the workflow. So there's a dramatic shift that's happening almost in real time. It was data, then it became how do we leverage data in technology, to now insights, and now the expectation is that insights should be within their workflows. And that is all this agentic solutions, this AI, this innovation is all about. How do I not leave my existing ecosystem and get the insights for the maximum impact?
Great, thank you. And so you have a slightly different perspective because you look over a fair number of different clients and businesses. Can you share some of your insight into how you're seeing engineering leadership shift over the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make a couple of points around that, maybe 3. So first thing is, with the advent of digital, everything related to technology has taken a shift towards engineering. So it's become all about engineering more and more. So in the past, we used to have this distinction saying, this is IT or MIS, and this is product, and this is engineering, and this is something else. But with the advent of digital and now, of course, AI, it's all morphed into engineering. So yes, I do have the privilege of working with customers across industries. So I work with some of the leading tech companies and then companies which operate in the financial and retail and other industries. So that's a clear change that has happened and an evolution of engineering that has happened. The second very important thing is technology has become commonplace, and that's pretty cliche to say. The importance of resilience and trust has increased exponentially, I would say, and it's becoming more and more important as we go along. So resilient systems, resilient processes, resilient business models are becoming more important. They're becoming very foundational to businesses, to enterprises, and so on. And last but not the least is the notion of trust. Everybody is using ChatGPT and Claude and everything else, but do you really trust that thing? And especially when applied to the enterprise, that assumes significance like no other. So those are really three things I would say in terms of how it's evolving.
Great, thank you. We've taken sort of that high-level view. I'd like to ask some specific questions. And so, Mary, as a woman engineering leader, what are some of the inspirational instances that you've had across the course of your career?
Sure. I'd say one initiative that really comes to mind is IRIS. So IRIS stands for Interagency E-Referral Information System. And so this was, I was actually brought in around 2010. As you can imagine, that was a world where we were operating in phones and faxes for the most part, and there was a real problem with the rural communities not being able to connect to care. So there was a great opportunity in front of us in terms of building out a digital infrastructure that would connect rural communities, community health service providers, hospitals, healthcare physicians and specialists and patients. And we built that, so I led the development of that infrastructure that connected 40 healthcare providers. And for the first time, rural communities and patients gained visible care across that care continuum and were able to seamlessly connect. And that project is very close, not just because of the technology impact, but the actual human impact. And I say when you give engineering discipline to a community that really needs it, you see that communities gain access, patients gain time, and sometimes even lives. And I've taken that same sense of purpose with me as I went on in my career, because ultimately the inspiration there was that it's not just the technology impact. You want to really understand the outcomes of the systems and the people's lives who depend on it.
Great. Well, just one sort of follow-up question to that. You and your company are on the cutting edge of financial technology, right? How do you see diversity in the engineering workforce helping you when you come through with new and cutting-edge digital products?
I'd say diverse teams will definitely shape out much better solutions. And I would say that because rarely are fair systems designed by homogeneous groups. So when you've got a set of developers that only mimic a fraction of the population, it's going to generate blind spots. So diverse teams are more likely to challenge those assumptions and reflect the realities of our communities. And ultimately, diversity cannot be an afterthought. It has to be interwoven into the fabric of the organization. And diverse solutions, for the most part, they are more inclusive. So when the input is widened, it generates more opportunities. Absolutely. But if the inputs are narrow, we can amplify the biases and inequity.
I would completely second this thought. And especially in regulated industries like life sciences, pharma. This cannot be an afterthought. We see clinical trials, for example.
Yeah.
Having this thought or having this embedded into this whole workflow and system makes such a big difference. There has been so much documentation that unintentionally there were people of specific segments that were left out of those clinical trials for a myriad of reasons. But now having that inclusivity built in as you are designing these processes, as you're designing these clinical trials, as you are thinking about what drugs should come to the market, what pricing, what regulations needs to be processed in. These are making a big difference, and we are seeing this firsthand.
That's great. Thank you. So, seeing that you jumped in, let me just follow up with a question on you. First off, congratulations to you and Improso for winning the AI Impact of the Year. That's a wonderful honor. And as it continues to scale, AI continues to scale across, industry and particularly for you, drug commercialization. How can you ensure that patient centricity, which could be a buzzword, but how do you keep it front and center in everything you do as AI becomes more prevalent?
Very valid question. And patient centricity has been around, as you said, it was a buzzword. It is no longer a buzzword. It is the heart and center of what every organization, healthcare or life sciences, pharma or med device, they do have patient at the center. And if you do not have that, you're missing the central bit. It is not a slogan, it is a central bit. It's a central embodiment now of what is being done. I would want to emphasize that 3 basic facets as we think about patient. One is the insights that are generated, how they are impacting directly the patients, because patients are the ones who are finally getting impacted, both positive and negative way. Regulated industries like life sciences, it's very complex. You have a company that creates a solution, drugs in this case, or care. There is someone else who is paying for it, which is in this case an insurance. The third partner is the one who is receiving it, and fourth, which is a PBM, who is coordinating it. So it's a very rather complex ecosystem altogether. Sure. Patient actually is that central, where the insights and the analytics, the technology is coordinating all these moving parts together. Hence, it cannot be a slogan or an afterthought, as Dr. Mary said. It is that center page. Now, what we are seeing, the lines between the preclinical, the pre-commercial, where the drugs are getting developed, to medical, where you are now creating very explicit messaging, orchestration, all the way to commercial, where the drugs are now getting produced. These were silos. These were systems, processes which were built for those specific solutions. Now, with this advent of advanced technology and engineering, these lines are getting blurred. You are figuring out, with obviously compliance being the central bit of it, how do the technology systems that we have in preclinical or before the drug is created move towards medical, then those are the same systems that are being leveraged towards commercial. How does this work in orchestration? How does this engagement work in orchestration?
So just kind of to follow up on that, if you think about digital engineering and the value that it creates for different firms out there, particularly in your industry, do you see it being around revenue generation? Do you see it being around efficiency? Do you see it around being quality or perhaps speed to market in life sciences or something else?
I would say it's actually all of them. I know it looks like a cliche answer, but every company is under tremendous pressure of revenue optimization. At the same time, they want faster insights. They all want to be the first to market. Let's take an example of business development. If there is a molecule that is out there which is strategically and economically aligned to, let's say, large pharma, there will be 15 pharma companies who will be bidding for that. Now, how do you get the insights that are required in order to bid for it, to understand the strategic importance, in order to understand how will that bolster their revenue line, but eventually also that you have identified the patient population that would benefit from that. If you don't have the insights in a way which is timely, which is efficient, which is economical, you would lose out. So it's a combination of all of that.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. So, Saurabh, we're seeing a new trend in engineering, that organizations are kind of moving away from spot solutions or project-based standalone digital capabilities to much more of a platform approach. So what are you seeing that distinguishes companies that are able to do that well, that are able to create that platform advantage compared to others?
So what phone do you use?
What phone do I use? I use an iPhone.
So that's a great example of a company that looks at engineering as platforms and not as point products, right? It's a platform, it's an ecosystem, and that's how they build. What car do you drive?
I drive a Jeep.
A Jeep, again, a platform, right? So look, the world has evolved from individual products or point products and point solutions to platforms and ecosystems over the last, I would say the last decade and a half, probably longer, right? So the leading companies today are the ones that have a thriving ecosystem and have engineered platforms that leverage that ecosystem. So it's the numerous examples. You talk about Apple or Google or General Motors or Ford or any of these companies, right, across industries. They have built scalable platforms which reach the masses, are engineered as platforms and not point solutions. And that's what even customers are looking for. That's what they're looking for.
And is there something that is common across all of those companies that has enabled them to build that the way they have?
So, I think platform and ecosystems thinking itself, just the notion of platforms and ecosystems has been embraced quite widely now, I would say. It's really differentiated the haves and have-nots. There are plenty companies out there who have chosen to stay the course with whatever they're doing, and they obviously are getting left behind. So I would say it's the mindset that is the most important thing that has distinguished these companies.
So in your role in LTTS, if you find that there's a company that has the mindset and wants to go and transform themselves to being a platform company,
right?
What are sort of the top couple of things that you discuss with them?
So for us to get plugged into that ecosystem, so we don't. So how we approach them differently is we don't want to just have a transactional conversation with these companies, because that's something they don't really want. When you're talking about platforms and ecosystems, it's really a full 360 partnership that you're talking about with these customers of ours. So they're clients, they're customers, but we are also partners with them. We are also customers for them, and so on. So that's how we look at our partnerships and relationships with these customers.
Okay, great. Yeah. And so for the other two of you, I'd like to kind of extend that question. As you see the move towards more of platformization, if you will, what do you see as the biggest hurdle to getting there? Is it the technology? Is it the leadership? Is it talent alignment? Is it culture? Is it something else? Yeah, please, Mary.
I would say, in my perspective, it would be hands down the culture. Often you can purchase technology, you can hire for a good talent, but getting people to align around major decisions and how to respond to change often takes time. And when you think about it, a lot of organizations right now, they are running on fairly good technology. If it doesn't meet the needs, then you can go out and purchase new technology. Yes, there's integration challenges and all sorts of technical challenges that will come in the way, but that's often the easier part. When it comes to the workforce, naturally, as the organization starts to grow and become more complex, the workforce does get scaled up and they do get training. And you can always hire out the right talent that will meet the needs of the organization. But culture, I've noticed, and I've been part of organizations where there is an element of curiosity, and I'd say continuous learning embedded within that culture. That's really the secret sauce of success. And so for me, that's culture.
I would agree. I could use different nomenclature from whether it's change management, whether it's adaptation,
Right.
but it is the technology or the technical integration is not the hardest. It could be the front face, but as you deploy some of these advanced technology solutions, it's not foreign to them. They have been in different facets, capacities. Like yes, it's AI and Gen AI right now. It was cloud 10 years back. Before that, it was .com. There have been, almost every 8 to 10 years, there have been large monumental shifts in how we perceive and how we see the world. The difference between a successful integration, successful technology adoption at any X company has been its ability to adapt, its ability to assimilate, and its ability to perform, which all boils down to is that company ready to adopt it?
Wonderful. So basically what I'm hearing is culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Yes.
To quote somebody very much more famous than we are, right?
No, but I think what Mary
please.
said about curiosity, right? The learning culture, that's become even more relevant in today's context. So you absolutely nailed it. I think that's one thing that I know we struggle with, being in the technology services business. How do you get everybody in the team to be as curious to learn? And curiosity generates that learning culture. That learning culture leads to bigger, better things. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is do a little bit of a lightning round, if that's all right with you. And first question I'll ask all of you. Let me just go down the row. First one, I've got 2 questions, so we'll go down the row this time. We'll come back this way. One barrier your industry must overcome in order to unlock the next generation of digital engineering.
I'd say operating in silos. What I notice is, there's the business, there's risk, there's technology, but when we all operate independently, it slows down innovation, it slows down decision making. But if we're more in sync and we look to a more integrated systems thinking approach, it can improve decision velocity and the pace of innovation.
Great, thank you. Dupree?
Leadership alignment.
Leadership alignment.
All the leadership needs to have a consensual decision on what they're looking for in this crawl, walk, run approach.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we want to be constantly curious and be extremely paranoid, because right now in today's era, that's important to have. Those 2 things will help drive growth. That's
Okay.
what we all go for.
And then one capability that you would recommend that the next generation of engineering leaders have in order to be successful?
Constantly learning. I mean, the learning mindset is so critical right now, so critical. Constantly learning, adapting. Yeah.
Great.
Self-reliance. So it's gone are those days where you would have a team of 20 people working for different aspects. It is one man, one woman who can do end-to-end, and that's where we are headed.
I'd say instead of just building systems, really considering how to govern it responsibly, especially when we take a look at intelligent systems. They often require that these systems are secure, fair, transparent, explainable, so governing responsibly is very important.
Great. Well, thank you all for the time today. It's been wonderful to not only speak with you, but also hear your thoughts that have come from years of experience. We've talked about what it's going to take, what changes have occurred, what it's going to take going forward, and what it means for us as individuals and all of those other engineering leaders out there. It's been tremendously insightful for me and hopefully very valuable for everyone else. So thank you all.